I myself had quite a difficult time getting up. So I was thinking, oh, people will be so tired, but I understand that. So I'm gonna film this and post this in the event, so you can look at it later. And don't worry, none of you will be filmed, so you can ask questions without feeling that, oh, people will know it's me who asked the question. So, and feel free to ask questions anytime. So don't wait for the end for the questions and answers section. Just ask straight away when you hear me say something that you're wondering about or want some clarification about, and I will try my best to answer your question. Are you filming now? So what I'm trying to do here now is, I guess, something difficult, because to summarize a whole tradition that has a long, elaborate path of practices expanding over decades of time, and it's very difficult. Tibetan Buddhists can spend years studying just one part of what I'm going to just summarize for you in a very quick way. So my hope is just to make you interested in Tibetan Buddhism, give you a general feel of, okay, this is kind of the path of how they do it. And if you get like interested, oh, this something is calling me, this is very interesting to me, then you can seek out proper lamas to give you guidance, somebody that you feel like, okay, this is a qualified master in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and then they can guide you step by step and give you personalized instructions on the path. So that's my hope, just to make you interested and curious. So who am I? That is the big question, isn't it? So I don't have an answer to that. But I can tell you my name is Alexander Walter, and I've been practicing in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition for over 15 years, almost 20. And I just, as a teenager, I had a really rough time, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I felt really alone, and my life felt meaningless. I felt like, what's the point of living if it's all about, you have to do so many things, and then you have to get a job, and life is about working to pay your bills, and then you get old and then you die. Life felt so meaningless to me. So it spiraled to that point where I actually felt like maybe I should take my own life, because I really felt no point in living. But then one day, when it was the worst, I woke up with, okay, no, I need to find the meaning of life. That's what I should spend my time with. So I started looking into religions, reading the Bible, which was an amazing experience. I went into Islam and looked at that, the Eastern tradition, the Hindu practices, but then something caught me with the story of Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, where I just fell in love with this story of the prince who gave up everything because his longing to know the truth of reality was so strong that he gave up everything. He even left his wife and newborn child just because this calling in him was so great. And then he found the truth, and then he spread it to the world, and I was like, wow, I want to be like him. So I started meditating, and you can imagine a young man who is desperate to find the truth because his life depends on it. How passionately I started meditating. It became the whole focal point of my life. So I made a lot of mistakes on the path because I didn't have any guidance. I thought, no, I'm gonna find it myself. I can't trust anyone. There's so many views. I need to find the truth myself. But then, yeah, after making a lot of mistakes and starting to feel like, okay, maybe I'm going crazy, okay, I decided I need to find a teacher. And then I found a teacher in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And that's when I started the path of walking that tradition. And I really think that finding a teacher is kind of like falling in love, when you just listen to someone and you feel like, what this person says really touches me, it affects me, I'm inspired by this person, and then you can, that's a good sign that, okay, this is the person you can start to follow. And yeah, in the Tibetan Buddhist teaching, they say you should wait 12 years before you start following the teachers. You should follow him and examine his qualities for 12 years. And then you can say, okay, he is my teacher, because I know he embodies the necessary qualities a teacher should have. There's this long list, a teacher should have these qualities. But yeah, in the West, we don't have really so much time for that, so we can just do our best to follow a teacher we feel called to follow. And I think it's fun because in Tibetan Buddhism, they have so many strict rules, but when it's coming to the West, the Tibetans have in many cases realize, okay, the Westerners live in a much different way than we do, so they make almost every rule much more relaxed with us, because yeah, we know they can't really follow these rules, so let's make it easier for them, so at least they can get a taste of the Dharma. So I will describe a little bit more about this to you. So, before I continue, I want to share with you some of my favorite books. You can just pass it around, look at it. If you feel interested, you can write down the title and then check it out, maybe an online version, or order it yourself. And but please don't take them because I need them. I will have one example. So this is Ngundru for our current day. The Karmapa wrote this specifically for Westerners. So this is a more easy way of doing the preliminary practices required before tantric practice in Tibetan Buddhism. So it's very clearly described how to do each practice, the significance of the practices, how they affect your mind and energy system, why they're doing it. And so traditionally you do each practice 100,000 times before you are qualified to go to traditional tantric practice. But the Karma says that in this day and age, the Westerners, it's enough if they do it 10,000 times each. So, and then there are schools, and particularly one that I belong to, that's much more relaxed and radical, that say, okay, as long as you have stability in your life, you've done some meditation practice, you have some insight and the proper conditions, then you can do these practices together with certain tantric practices. So you can do them simultaneously, as long as you have some guidance from someone who can hold space for you, so it doesn't become too intense and uproots your entire life and leads you to like go into a crisis because you can't hold the intense processes that are awakened in tantric process. It's so funny, before coming here I wrote this big outline. This is how I'm going to do it, so it's clear, but now I'm completely doing it in a different way, which is usually what happens when I talk. So here you go, I can pass this around, you can look at it. And here is my favorite book of all. It's written by Lama Yeshe, who's the founder of the tradition I belong to. It's the FPMT, the Federation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. And Lama Thupten Yeshe, together with Lama Sopa Rinpoche, founded that tradition. They have a monastery in Kopan where they first started, but then they came to the West and started spreading the teachings there. And yeah, the teacher I follow has studied with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Lama Yeshe died before I was born, unfortunately, but when I read his words, I'm like, this is my root guru. Like everything he says, it's like I'm saying it to myself. So this in this book, Introduction to Tantra, the Transformation of Desire. He goes through the whole path, all the different tantric practices in a very clear, easy to understand way. So this was Lama Yeshe's strong suit, that he was able to communicate the message of Tibetan Buddhism to Westerners. So he understood the Western mindset and was able to transmit this knowledge, which is beyond words. And yeah. So please look at this. Here you go. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, anytime.
First, do you mind posting the photos of them in our Facebook group?
The books? Yes, of course.
Can we buy them on Amazon or?
I think so, yes. Yeah. Okay. And here is Vajrasattva. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they have something called yidams. It's deities. It's basically different aspects of the same Buddha mind, which we all are. And these different deities have different qualities that you can call forth and embody. So that's what the Yidam practice is. So I'm showing you specifically Vajrasattva because he's one of the first deities you start to practice. And already in the Nugundru practices, you start doing the Vajrasattva mantra and practice, because he specifically purifies and protects your energy system. And so I just wanted to give you a picture of how he looks, because in the practices you get like a description. And there's an iconography to all the deities, where like all the crown and the 5 jewels with different colors are the 5 wisdom energies. He's holding the dorje in each hand, which represents the masculine energy. And so every detail of the picture has a symbolic meaning, which points to a certain quality of your mind that you can bring forth in the meditations. So it's very interesting to look at. And there are, I would say, hundreds of these idams that have different qualities that you can bring forth when needed and call. And they have their own mantras as well. So, but Vajrasattva, I will be guiding you through a quick Vajrasattva practice at the end of this, hopefully, if I will have time to talk. Here we go. And one last book, The Trackless Path, written by a Western teacher called Ken McLeod. I'm bringing up this book particularly because it's such a clear description of the non-dual teachings of Buddhism. And this teacher has been practicing in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition for I think over 30 years. And I'm going on an online course and that's about this book. And we've been going on that course for 2 years now, and we've just reached half the book. So my teacher is basically just taking a paragraph from the book, reading it, and then we're just sitting and meditating on the meaning of that paragraph. And that's how you can read this book, because it's full of what's called pointing out instructions. And you just read one sentence, and then you just contemplate that and try to immerse yourself in what's the meaning of this, and that can be enough. And then you put it away, and then the next day you can just read another wisdom quote. So for example, see something. The mind itself, innately complete in all its potential, is conceived in uncontrived naturalness. Yet you, sophists, who take the two truths literally, distort being itself with your logic and analysis. How long your journey, you followers of awakening being philosophy. So this is from the poem, and that's based on this book. And here he describes where people who try to think their way to realization, they have a long way before they can actually taste the meaning that they're pointing to in these books. So it's a very, very interesting book where the poet describes all the way we prevent ourselves from realizing the natural and clear truth which is present in us, which we all know deep inside already, but can't be expressed with words. But we prevent ourselves from entering that state through different means. So very, very interesting read. I would recommend it for everyone. Okay, so that was the introduction. Took a lot longer than I thought. But yeah.
Can I
Yeah?
quickly ask a question?
Yes.
There are different Buddhist practices.
Yes.
Why was Tibetan Buddhism what you felt most strongly?
I think it was mainly influenced by the teacher I fell in love with, that he was part of that tradition. So I just felt called that, okay, I'm also gonna do that then. Because I felt like, okay, this teacher has qualities that I want to embody myself. So, and then it's much easier to do that if you dedicate yourself to one thing. Before I was scattered and doing so many different things, and that it can get a bit confusing, but doing one thing, then you can get more focused and get result. But funnily enough, my teacher says, no, after all, it's okay to do different traditions because they're all one and the same actually. It doesn't matter what tradition you follow, and all of them do actually the same thing, just in different ways. And like all paths lead to God eventually. So I think the most important thing is to follow what calls you. I thought somebody had a question back there, but it's just a yoga pose. That's great, that's beautiful. No, that's beautiful. Okay. So I wanted to talk to you a little about what's called Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Probably some of you have already heard that. So it's this almost like this hierarchy of practices where Theravada is focused on liberation for oneself. So that's basically the main teachings in Buddhism, and most Buddhist practitioners may belong to the Theravada level of practice, where the meaning of practice is to become enlightened so that we do not suffer anymore. We don't have to become reborn again and again as different beings who are lost and confused in this dream, samsara or maya. And so that's the point of practice, to awaken out of that dream. And then you have the Mahayana level, which Tibetan Buddhists belong to, that say, no, the point of practice is to awaken so you can be reincarnated again and again by choice, with control, so that you can help other beings to awaken and be free from the suffering of being lost in samsara. And then you have Vajrayana Buddhism, which is part of the Mahayana, you could say, because you can't abandon the Mahayana view set if you want to practice Vajrayana. And that's where Tantra comes in, where they say like, okay, Vajrayana is for people who are so desperate to awaken that they are willing to give up their life for it, that if you're burning with desire, this is the most important thing in my life. So then there are these special techniques developed for you so you can become enlightened in one quick lifetime. So it's like it's using rocket fuel in your practice. So, and that's why it's so, you have to do it in a very careful way, because these techniques are so powerful. Without the right conditions, you can hurt yourself. And that's why there's also so much secrecy traditionally around these practices. That secrecy is impossible today because something called Google. So all of you can just go to Google today and write Vajrayana, or write Tantra, or write anything. And these teachings that before, for thousands of years, were protected very strictly, that you could get punished severely if you just looked at the text that you were not allowed to look at before. Now all of this you have access to in your pocket at any time. So because of that, I think it's more healthy to not hold so tightly on the secrecy. Thank you. But instead try to give everyone as much good information as possible, and instead to warn about the risks, you know? So if you do too many intense practices without a safe space, without a proper teacher, without the right conditions in your life, yeah, you can go into a full-blown crisis and create harm to yourself and others. But it can also be the best thing you've ever done in your entire life. So I think it's to give information is the best thing, rather than to keep it secret. And then after you've been in the club for 10 years, and we see like, okay, you're ready, now we can share this information with you. So that doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So that's also a bit like, there's this nervousness in me of, okay, I'm talking about things that in the tradition maybe you're not supposed to actually talk about, because if I share information with you that's going to affect the rest of your life, then now I'm bound to you karmically, and if something negative happens in your life, that's on me as well, and I could go to like Buddhist hell for a few reincarnations because of that karma that I created. Or maybe I'm scaring you away from the tradition, which is a huge karma. So because I described it to you in a wrong way, now you don't want to practice Tibetan Buddhist Tantra because it's not for me, then it's on me that I steered you away from something that could have awakened you if you just received a different kind of instruction. So that's why it's a bit scary when this is in there, but yeah. But that's why I'm not teaching you Tantra, I'm talking about Tantra. And I'm not telling you anything that you can't find out easily on yourself. So I'm not sharing any secrets with you. I'm just talking to you in a general way. So that's how I'm like sidestepping that rule. Like every rule has a loophole. So that's something you learn when you study law. Okay, so let me start talking about the actual prerequisites to Tantra. Okay, so the main prerequisite, I would say, the first step one, is taking refuge. So what does taking refuge mean? So I could talk just about taking refuge for days, and I would still not describe everything, what that really means. And that's what Tibetans do. They have like 3-day like lectures with the Lama, and the Lama just talks about the meaning of taking refuge. And still they feel like, oh, there's still room to elaborate on this. And that's what they do with everything I'm going to tell to you. There's so much to discover, but I'm just going to describe it to you in a very short way. So taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the 3 jewels. So Buddha, So you can view that in different ways. The Buddha being the historical Buddha, the teacher, the one who awakened and gave us the wisdom teaching so that we can awaken. So taking refuge in him, meaning having faith that his words will trigger awakening in you. But the inner way of looking at it is taking refuge in your own Buddha nature, taking refuge in your innermost wisdom and intuition, which is ever present. So that is the true meaning of refuge, of taking refuge to your own innate intuition, your Buddha mind. Dharma, the teachings, I would say the 86,000 lectures that the Buddha gave, the different methods, the techniques, is one way of looking at the Dharma. Or the Dharma, the wisdom, the natural wisdom that comes from you when you are in your heart, when you are relaxed, when you're not thinking, but you're speaking from your intuition. So that is the Dharma. That just the simple wisdom that we all have inside, that we're born with, that you don't even have to learn, that we know from babies that it's wrong to harm others, that it's good to help others, that we're not separate, that we are actually intimately connected, even though we're strangers, even though we don't know each other. We all belong to one family. That could be called the Dharma. Sangha, the spiritual community, taking refuge in that, trusting that, oh, okay, I can get help from this. This is a Sangha. We are a Sangha right now because we're gathering together to practice, to support each other, to get inspiration from each other. If somebody is going through an emotional reaction, because we're doing intense practices together, we're going to workshops, our wounds are being triggered, our boundaries are being overstepped, then the Sangha will step in and support and guide and help. And so take refuge in that, to ask for help, to open and relax and trust that the people you practice together with is a precious treasure that is here to help you. So that's a refuge. So that's one of the prerequisites. And another is renunciation. Maybe some of you have heard that word. And it's so easy to misunderstand this word called renunciation. So renunciation is, there's another word for that. It's called definite emergence. So it's hard to translate this from the original word. But renunciation simply means that you know that nothing in this world can ever make you happy. Nothing outside of you can make you happy. That no matter how much money you get, how famous you get, how liked you are, how good your life becomes, it won't fulfill this longing in you that you have to awaken, to know who you really are, to touch your deepest essence, to become enlightened. That they say we all have this longing deeply inborn in us. It's unavoidable, but most of us bury this longing and instead go into trying to fill this hole in us, this longing, with eating, drinking, partying, entertainment, beautiful things, fun experiences, connections, relationships. But in the end, none of that really works, and we end up disappointed, and we end up being reborn again and again and again, and trying to find this thing that finally makes us feel whole, but nothing outside of us can do that. Only what's inside of us can do that. Only realizing the truth of our being can do that. And when you don't just understand that intellectually, because I think all of us can say, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I agree with you. But when this lands in your heart, then that changes so much in your life. That changes how you approach life. That changes how you view how you should live your life. So that's the prerequisite, that you really feel like this is the meaning of my life. The meaning of my life is to awaken. When you have that, then you're ready to practice Tantra according to the tradition. Or at least you have one of the prerequisites ticked off from the list. Okay. I'm talking so much, and this is so fun. I have so much more to talk about, but please feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay, bodhicitta. And this is something I will also describe much more elaborately tomorrow, same time. Bodhicitta is two words. Bodhi is awake, and chitta means heart-mind. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they don't separate the mind and the heart. It's the same thing. It's connected. And of course, they have different words for the thinking mind, sem, it's called, but chitta meaning in a broad sense, the mind, the consciousness of the being. So awake consciousness is another way you can describe it. But bodhicitta, the awake mind, is simply knowing that we are all one, would be a new age way of saying it. And it's not just knowing that, it's feeling in your heart that actually all these people looking at me right now, even though I don't know them, I don't even know your name, and you all look so different, but essentially the light that shines through all of your eyes is the same as mine. That the essential nature of your being is me, is who I am. I'm looking at myself, talking to myself about myself. And when you touch into that, that creates such a huge shift in your consciousness. It's such a powerful medicine. And you could say it's really the essence of Tibetan Buddhism. It's what it's all coming to. It's both the start of the path and the end of the path. It's the energy that's infused in the entire tradition. And of course there are steps to this. So relative bodhicitta would be simply the warmth in your heart that you feel when you know this. And ultimate bodhicitta is the Buddha nature that holds the entire experience. And they're one and the same. So yeah, we can talk about this forever. And I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow. And I like to view this practice, I call it self-love and no self. And it's both the same. Loving yourself means knowing that there is no self, that we're all one and the same. And knowing that we're all one and the same, there's nothing else you can do but to love yourself as much as possible. Both your small, separate little self that has a name, that has a job, that has responsibilities, that has a role to play, and also your true self, which is not bound to any of that. So I'm actually starting now a Facebook community called that. That's gonna be free in the beginning, and where everyone can share their own views and explorations on this, and we will have regular Zoom meetings about this. And I just want to create a community where we can talk about this and share our own experiences and get support and inspiration from each other. And so in a few days it's coming, and I'm inviting all of you. And if you want to join, you're very welcome. Thank you. Okay. So one of the first practices you do in Tibetan Buddhism is called shamatha, or shine in Tibetan. It's called calm abiding meditation, and it's such a necessary foundational practice to do. Is just simply stabilizing your mind, and just like focusing on your breathing, or looking at a candle, or listening to music, is to have a sense of peace and quiet in your mind. And that can be very difficult for us because we live such hectic lives, and we're constantly bombarded by information, and the screens that are surrounding us everywhere is constantly taking away our attention, whether we want to or not. So it's this training the muscle of attention in your mind of, okay, my attention goes somewhere else. I'm putting my attention where I want it to be, and I'm resting my attention there. Training this muscle that you have the capacity to choose what you focus on is the foundation of shamatha meditation. And it's so important, because just imagine if you feel like, okay, I'm a person that has a bit of like ADHD. I have very trouble with focusing my attention where I want to be, and now I'm doing this intense Kundalini exercise where I'm generating a lot of energy and I'm sweating and I'm starting to get dizzy. I wonder what I should eat tomorrow, and that person, he made me angry yesterday, and then the energy becomes all twisted, and no, I don't feel so good. So it's so clear that it's so important that you are able, at least for some periods, to focus your attention where you want it to go. So that is the first thing you train in Tibetan Buddhism. And it's really difficult, especially in the beginning. It's like, okay, I'm gonna focus on this candle, breathe in, breathe out, just watch the candle, relax, so don't focus too much and become concentrated. It's not concentration practice, it's just being able to hold the object of meditation in a relaxed way. And then, okay, now I'm thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow. Breathe in, return to the object of meditation in a calm, easygoing way, not judging yourself, but accepting, okay, now I'm back. That is a practice. So I usually compare it to weightlifting. So each time you return to the object you have chosen, it's like lifting a dumbbell. You're like, yeah, okay, so now the muscle becomes bigger. Because you're gonna have to do this a lot of times, again and again, coming back. Yes?
It's just because now you say weightlifting. I often wondered, in this tradition, you really train your mind, and we know that one of the best things to, at least for your brain, generate possibilities to train your mind, that is physical exercise.
Yeah.
Is that a part of Buddhism? Because I never heard that, and I always wondered, why are they not training physically, because that will also train your mind in a very difficult way. Yes.
Great point, and I could talk about that forever as well. Just this point of they have very few physical exercises in Buddhism. They have a few. I think one of the most physical exercises is the prostration. They do 100,000 prostrations in the Nugundra, and it's a full body prostration where you go really like full down and full up, and doing that 100,000 times, or just like 100 times a day, it's gonna be very physical. But yeah, and you will see like many lamas, they have a big belly and they do very little exercise, and because the focus is on the mind, is on the consciousness, is on the heart, on working on your emotions, so it's easy to forget, and it's easy for, how to say, the body and the coarse level of existence to be like, no, but that's not so important, because that's what we're, how to say, almost, there's this almost subtle cue of, that's what we're trying to get away from, and as awaken out of, not to put more emphasis on. But it is, as you say, I know from myself that I didn't start to exercise regularly until after my 30s. And I had a period of my life where I've already been practicing meditation for 10 years. I was already very advanced in the tradition. But then I had this really, I was feeling burnt out. And I was feeling like, I lost all my vitality. I felt like, I have no energy. I'm like, what's going on? I'm doing all the right things. But then it was like, no, I'm actually not taking care of my body. I'm not exercising regularly. And I'm not eating properly either. I'm just focusing on the mind. So I started to work out regularly, and it was hell in the beginning, you know. I started doing martial arts with a friend, and then slowly I started lifting weights, started jogging, dancing, doing yoga, and like trying different things. And then, like, already after a few months, I'm like, I feel so much more alive. It's so much easier now to relax, to be stable, to do the practices. And so actually that's one of the most important things about my tantric practice, is to keep the body healthy and strong, because then the stronger your body is, the more intense energies you can move through it. So it's really important. Yes.
I also think that the tradition is so old that in our life now we are more, sitting still the whole time.
Yeah.
And we need the exercise, but further back it was a natural thing to move your body, to do stuff in the garden.
It happened in everyday life.
Yeah, so I don't think it's focused because of that.
And today we have deep fried burgers.
Yes.
And
You have these monks going into a cave for 5 years sitting in meditation.
yeah.
I really wonder if that, you go all in your mind.
Yeah.
Go out of life.
Yes.
And you don't train your body in any way.
Yeah. But not everyone does that.
That would not be the best way to do it, I think.
No.
You have to train your brain also through your body.
Yes.
I would expect.
Yeah.
I just wonder, these traditions, are they optimal in a way?
But nothing is optimal, and I think that's the whole point of, you have to find your own way, and this is what the Buddha went through. First he lived a life of indulgence as like a prince until he was like 30, and then he said, no, this is not the way, and then he went into asceticism for 6 years in the forest, and he almost died of starving himself to death. And then he said, no, this is not the way, and then he found the middle way, which he called it, and that became Buddhism. So that is the insight we can take from Buddhism. There is no right or wrong way. We have to find the middle way, our own way, and balance it to our life. And we all have different, conditions in our life, and our life will continually change. And when our life changes, our practice needs to change. So maybe for a period of time, it can be very good to, I'm just going to focus on this one meditation and go all in, and nothing else matters. But then you have to get out of it and say, no, I'm going to focus on something else. I'm going to bring in more aspects. And who can say what is the right way? And it depends on the person, depends on the life and where they are. And that's why the Buddha could give two people with the same problem 2 different advices. Almost contradictory advices. Because he knew, no, this person needs this and this person needs that. So I think we should all just try to find our way. And this touches upon this other point where I was mentioning renunciation. which is such a big thing in the Buddhist tradition of giving up worldly desires. And it's so easy, like, no, okay, I'm going to become a monk, and I'm not gonna drink alcohol, I'm not gonna party, I'm not gonna indulge myself in good foods, I'm not gonna do any of the fun stuff in life, because what's most important is to become enlightened for all beings. And that's not what renunciation means, actually. Renunciation means that you know that these things won't fulfill you, the longing, but in Tantra, these things are the fuel that will bring you to enlightenment. So that's why the book I was handing out is called The Transformation of Desire. And that's what Tantra is, where you take the pleasures in life and you use that to awaken. So, like, all the beauty you see in the world, all the delicious things you eat, even alcohol and substances that affect your mind, and pleasure and sex and all these things, these are such powerful things that trigger such powerful experiences in you. They can bring about deep insights, deep knowing of yourself, of what's going on in your mind, of who you really are, get you into these transcendental states. And that's Tantra. That's the practice of Tantra. So it's so interesting to see that what renunciation really means. It's not giving up the good things in life. It's using them to awaken. Shamatha. Yeah, Vipassana. I think many of you have heard of that. That's a big part of Buddhism. It's the type of meditation where you meditate on impermanence. It's a very important part before practicing Tantra, because knowing that everything is constantly changing in your experience. There is no solid ground that, especially with inner experiences, that if you get stuck somewhere, if you feel angry or hurt or sad, or there's a pain somewhere, then it can take all the focus away. So if your little toe is hurting, less than 1% of your part, 100% of your attention goes on your little toe. You just imagine when you hit your toe on the door, all your attention is going there, and it's like, my whole being is hurting, but actually it's just this small part, of you. And so this insight of knowing everything is constantly changing, you become much more easygoing, much more relaxed. And, oh, this is so difficult. Oh, my life sucks. Oh, nothing is ever gonna get good again. It's already changing. Everything is changing all the time. It's like, yes, this is how it feels right now, but tomorrow it's gonna feel different. Just knowing that, you get so much more space to be with the shit that happens. And a lot of shit will come up when you do Tantra practice. So it's good to have that, knowing that, okay, this feels horrible, but it's not gonna last. This too shall pass, this insight. It's so important to have that. Yes. Shamatha, Vipassana. Yes. So, maybe I can start talking about the Ngundru practice, the actual preliminaries in the tradition and the different techniques they use. So Ngundru is preparation for the mind and the nervous system. So it's already Tantra, actually, but it's like a milder Tantra to prepare the nervous system for these intense processes that will trigger in Tantra. And so that's why you have to repeat them again and again, so that your mind is ready, actually. So prostrations, training the body, taking refuge, Vajrasattva practice, and I will guide you through it soon. Technically we only have 5 minutes left, but maybe none of you are in a big hurry. Maybe I can go a bit longer. Is that okay with you? Yeah, okay. And yeah, you have so many different practices actually. They have water bowl offerings. The symbolism of it is beautiful. Guru yoga, where you imagine your guru and embody his qualities, and depending on what tradition you follow, you have different practices. But yeah, the most important is the taking refuge, awakening bodhicitta, and I think all the preliminaries, no matter what tradition has Vajrasattva, because it's so powerful way of purifying your energy, and is also like all the Yidam practices follow the same pattern. So if you learn one Yidam practice, you can do the others as well, technically, but you still need to receive empowerments from the teacher. You still need to get a lecture and a transmission of the energy that's being awakened in that specific deity practice. But you could technically do the steps if you know one, because it's the same process that you go through. And it's so first you do what's called a front generation. So you imagine a light that slowly develops into this figure of the Buddha. And then you feel this energy in front of you, and this Buddha then blesses you, your body, speech, and mind, the 3 higher chakras. And then the Buddha becomes smaller, like the size of a Buddha statue or a palm of a hand, changes directions and sits on the top of your head. So here usually you do the mantra connected to that particular deity, and singing that mantra, you imagine a white liquid showering you from the top of your head down to your toes and purifying you, going into every pore of your skin and through your energy channels, and healing everything that's blocking your energies, and feeling like this warm liquid just oozing inside and outside of you, and imagining maybe like a black sludge or smoke coming from underneath you into the earth and disappearing. And so it's a very visual practice. And that's why it's good to have trained the mind to be able to hold these visualization practices, because it's easy to drop it and think about something else, but then it's good to come back again, because the more you can hold this image in your mind, the more powerful it can become, because the fantasy, like using fantasy, using imagination, is actually affecting your nervous system, the chemicals, your hormones all the time. That's why people who worry a lot and think about, maybe this bad thing will happen in the future, maybe this bad thing, they become sick, physically sick, because your body is releasing these negative stress hormones. But you can do the opposite. You can use the mind to release oxytocin, to release endorphins, to release dopamine, serotonin, whatever. So you can use your imagination to heal you. And that's really what you could say in a superficial way these kind of practices are about. So after being showered and purified, after a moment of silence, the Buddha becomes a tiny dot of light that enters through the crown of your head, down through your central channel into your heart. And there the Buddha takes his or her seat in your heart, and from there expands the light to cover your entire being, and coming out from all pores of your body, expanding in all directions. So you can really feel like your aura is becoming imbued with the energy of that Buddha. And then slowly, because of this intense energy, your physical body is being dissolved. You are turning into light. You are dissolving, you are disappearing. And having practiced shamatha meditation, you can go into these deep states of relaxation, of letting go, of at least temporarily achieving this emptiness realization of being nobody. Just for a glimpse, a split second of forgetting who you are. And from that space, you arise as that Buddha. You become that Buddha. You feel, how does it feel to be Vajrasattva? Sitting like him, embodying his qualities. And this is where the Tibetans generate what's called divine pride, feeling I am the Buddha, you know. And this is a big thing, because if you do this and you're not initiated, traditionally in the tradition is what a big downfall, like what a big ego trip, or you think you're a Buddha, huge spiritual ego, and there's truth to that, but what you can do is, instead of thinking I am a Buddha, maybe you can say, how would it feel to be a Buddha? And you can imagine that. So that's how they sidestep that rule, because if you would generate this thing called divine pride without proper initiation, you're breaking the samaya, it's called, the vow of tantric practice, and it's a bad karma. So be careful. So that's what my teacher says. Like, okay, because we're not really qualified, we're not doing that step. We're not imagining ourselves as the Buddha. We're imagining ourselves how it would feel to be a Buddha. Big difference. So we're gonna do that soon, and I'm just gonna. I was supposed to talk about Kundalini. It's called Tummo in Tibetan Buddhism, translated wild woman, the fiery female energy that we all have in us, awakening that, circulating it in the body. But I think you will do similar practices in this festival, and I think it's a very popular thing in the West in Tantra to awaken sexual fiery energy and circulate it. So I don't have to talk about it so much. So many practices. Milam yoga, I love that. It's called dream yoga. It's lucid dreaming, traveling in your dreams, using that in your spiritual practice to awaken, to recognize that the consciousness in the dream, the awareness you have in the dream is the same unbroken continuum that's in waking life. So that sleeping, deep sleep, dreaming, and waking life are the same. It's the same consciousness going through these different experiences, unbroken continuum of minds, going through these different experiences. And that, I feel, leads into the last point I wanted to touch upon, which is Dzogchen, the great perfection, or Mahamudra tradition, which is the last, if you could even call it, step in the tantric practice. It's resting in the purity of your own mind, the natural state of your mind. And these traditions almost hold like a no practice tradition, where there is no practice you can do. There's nothing you can do to rest in your Buddha nature. It's already present. It's here right now. You are already that. It's more of a recognizing and relaxing into, but also that you can't really say, because who is there to recognize something which is always present and is not a thing that you can recognize, but is what recognizes? How can you be aware of what is aware? It's this huge paradox that the mind can't wrap itself around. So they use analogies in this tradition, pointing out instructions, where they say it's like the sky and the clouds. So the clouds are the thoughts and emotions going through your experience, and the sky is ever present, always blue, always aware, never changing. It's always the same, but the clouds go through it. Rainbows come, storm clouds come, but the sky is unaffected by it. It just remains the same. So that's the pointer to your mind. That's how it is for you right now. So many things are going through in your experience, but you remain the same, no matter what.
If the core remains, why do I experience things?
Yeah, what a big paradox. I don't know, but here we are. We have a body, feelings.
If you get enlightened or awakened in this lifetime, do you bring something of that into next, in your opinion? What do you think?
I don't know. I haven't become enlightened yet. If I become, I will tell you.
In next life.
Maybe. I will try. But it's such a clear point in these traditions that you can't understand this, it makes no real sense, but still it's very clear. I think we can all understand what's being pointed here. It's being pointed to your innermost self that's untouched, cannot be hurt, cannot be destroyed, cannot be poisoned. No matter what you're going through, it remains the same, pure, clear, awake, aware, in the nature of love. That's an important part of it. That is not just like a cold witness hovering on the top of your head, looking down on reality. It's this all-encompassing space, like the universe, holding the entire experience. Inside everything is that taking shape, taking form. There is no separation. So this analogy of the clouds and the sky is actually a bit faulty in that the clouds and the sky appear to be two different things. But it's more like the waves and the ocean. It's the same thing, it's all water. So the waves come and go in the water, but they are water. That's how they would point to that reality is the same as your mind. It's all water. It's all your mind playing itself out. And once you really relax into that insight and you start feeling it, that's a really trippy, transcendental, psychedelic experience. And I think many can access that state through sacred medicines to get a glimpse of that. But then, of course, we lose that later. But it's still that can activate that, whoa, reality is not as real as I think it is. Actually, reality is much more unsolid than I think it is. And the way I view reality affects how reality appears to me. That I can actually change my experience of reality by changing how my mind views it. And when you step into that, you gain tremendous power to change your life. By knowing it's not about changing your circumstances so much, it's about changing how you approach it, where you're coming from, your intention, your view, and then all of a sudden, naturally, your life changes by itself. Okay. So let's do a quick Vajrasattva practice, and then we're done.
How long is the practice?
I'll do a very short, like 5 minutes, max 10 minutes thing. Just the whole visualization, and I'm doing the mantra. And
Okay.
then we're done. Yeah, you can sit, you can lay down, you can stand, you can walk slowly if you want as well. I think it's so common for people to think like you have to sit to meditate, and if you can do this, after you've tortured yourself for years like I have, and your knees have finally stretched out, so this is actually the most comfortable way to sit because your back is naturally straight, then this is the right way to sit. No, you can sit any way you want. You can lay down. The Buddha taught 4 postures for meditating. This is not the best way. But still, if you have done what I did, tortured yourself for years just to be able to sit this way, then finally it's the most comfortable way to sit. But I wouldn't recommend people to do that. So just relax instead and let yourself be meditated. I will do the work for you. You just relax and you receive. Start by taking a few deep breaths just to connect to your body. I've talked a lot, so my words have probably affected your system. Just to recognize how it feels in your body, going slowly from the toes to the top of your head. Noticing the movements in your belly, in your chest, contractions, excitement. And just being as soft as you can towards your experience. Welcoming who you are right now. And then if you feel called to, I would invite you to touch upon your deep longing to awaken. Just to recall to yourself that yes, what I long for is to know who I really am, know what reality is, to become the best version of myself so I can help people. And by awakening this longing in you, a white light appears in front of you. First, just a small dot like a star in the distant sky, but then slowly it becomes bigger and bigger until you can see the shape of Vajrasattva in front of you. Beautiful young man with long dark hair, with a crown of 5 jewels with different colors, dressed in beautiful silk clothes, holding 2 vajras in his hands, smiling at you, looking you deep into the eyes. Comes closer, blessing your body, speech, and mind, and then becomes smaller, sits on the top of your head, facing the same direction as you. So while I'm chanting the mantra, you can just imagine him pouring white, healing nectar on you, purifying you, clearing your energy and protecting you. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Drido Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anuratu me bhava, sarva siddhi me prayatsa, sarva karma sutsame, shitam shriya kuruhum maha. O Bhagavan Vajaheruka, Mame Munsa Heruka, Mahabhava Samaya, Sattva Ahum Pe. Vajasattva Samaya, Manupalaya, Vajasattva Tenopatita, Drido me bhava, Suttokayo me bhava, Suppokayo me bhava, Anuratu me bhava, Sarva siddhi me prayatsa, sarva karma sutsame, shitam shriya kuruhum maha. O Bhagavan Vajaheruka, Mame Munsa Heruka, Mahabhava Samaya, Sattva Ahum Pe. Vajasattva Samaya, Manupalaya, Vajasattva Tenopatita, Drido me bhava, Suttokayo me bhava, Suppokayo me bhava, Anuratu me bhava, Sarva siddhi me prayatsa, sarva karma sutsame, shitam shriya kuruhum maha. O Bhagavan Vajaheruka, Mame Munsa Heruka, Mahabhava Samaya, Sattva Ahum Pe. And then Vajrasattva becomes small, a small light, slowly going down into your heart, where he spreads out, covering your entire body, flowing out in all directions, in every pore of your skin, and then slowly feel that the qualities of Vajrasattva are becoming your qualities. Imagine how it would feel to be like Vajrasattva. And know that Vajrasattva will remain in your heart, and you can access him at any time. Anytime you need protection, Vajrasattva will be there. And you are, for the rest of the day, covered in a white force field of energy that's protecting you. So while you're going through the workshop, you are always protected from negative energies, while good energies are allowed to come in and touch you and heal you and love you. So thank you everyone for allowing me to share with you what I love. And sorry if I talked too much. I could talk for many more hours if there was time. I will share this video with you in the group, and you're all invited to my Facebook group. And please write to me if you have any questions. And you, the ones at home that didn't come, you can also write to me. So thank you. Mm.